Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. We will begin with some practice as people filter in. Begin by bringing attention to the awareness of your breathing in the abdominal area. Come into awareness of the inhale and the exhale, the breathing at the abdomen. Notice how this simple exercise of following the breath changes your awareness. Become attuned to the breathing. Perhaps as you follow the breath, you notice calm descending upon your body. Perhaps you notice concentration arising in the mind. Maybe you notice something else. Use the breath as a tool for noticing the quality of your awareness. Simply becoming still affects the body. And simply following the breath affects the mind. Very good. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. Let's begin by introducing ourselves. And you can say your name, and if you would like, you can say up to 3 words describing how you're doing today. Are you doing emotionally or in any other respect that you'd like to share with the group? And we'll start with the people in this physical location, and then we'll go to you, our friends joining us through the internet. So I'm Tasshin, and I am feeling calm.
Hi everyone, I'm Alice, and I'm honestly feeling slightly drowsy but calm.
Kyle, I'm feeling also calm. Seems to be a theme here. Peaceful, happy.
Koshin. Hi everyone, I'm Koshin. Feeling kind of sleepy but determined.
Hello, I'm Zev. I'm feeling calm and excited. Yeah, I'll go with those 2.
Can we go to Lynn and Bob?
My name is Lynn, and I am feeling connected and
Couldn't hear you.
I'm Bob, and I'm feeling less tired.
Can anyone else hear them?
I can.
Sorry, we are having.
do we repeat?
Okay, try again now.
Okay. I am Lynn. I am feeling connected and
Oh
content.
boy. I'm sorry, we're having some technical difficulties.
We could have everyone check in, and although we'll need to hear them for the questions, I suppose.
You want to say yours again?
Yes, I'm Bob, and I'm less tired today.
Try again now.
No. I am Lynn. I am feeling connected and content.
I am Bob, and I am feeling less tired today.
Are you sure?
How about Colin?
Hi, I'm Colin. I'm feeling warmly energetic and connected.
Margaret.
I'm Margaret, and I'm happy and relaxed by the pool.
Robin. Robin, you need to unmute yourself.
I'm Robin, and I'm feeling contented and grateful.
Pam.
Hi everyone, I'm Pam, and I'm worried and worn out and happy.
Rich.
Hi everyone, I'm Rich. I'm feeling sad, concerned, yet full of equanimity.
Renee.
Hi, I'm Renee. I am a complicated stew, but mostly grateful.
Christine. Christine, you have to unmute yourself.
I'm Christine, and I'm feeling very clean and human.
It's wonderful to be together, to see this group of people. It's also nice that we've checked in. We can see we're all coming from very different places, not just physically, of course, but we're in different subjective emotional realities right now. Some people are happy, some people are calm, some people are sad or worried. That means we're coming from different places. So we are attuned to that. Last week, those of you who are here will remember that we talked about the sutras a little bit. And I thought I would talk a little bit more about that today to give some context. As I mentioned to a friend yesterday, this is perhaps the number one thing that I wish I personally had started doing sooner on my spiritual path, is reading and studying the Buddhist sutras. So that's part of why I share it with you, so that this might be something that you decide to take up for yourself. And one way to do it is what I suggested last week of, for example, going to access-to-insight.org, or for those of you that would like, purchasing a copy of the sutras so that you can have it physically in your home, or you can get it on ebook, different sutras. But in any case, actually going and reading the sutras and just kind of poking around, exploring, learning what's out there. That can be a wonderful way to explore these teachings. But there's another way that might be an even easier and more powerful way to start that I thought I would talk about today. The Buddha seems to have made extensive use of numbered lists in his teachings. There are many, many numbered lists of different concepts that are related in different ways in the Buddhist teachings. For example, the 3 treasures, which we'll talk a little bit about today, or the 3 jewels, or the 4 noble truths, or the 5 precepts, or the 5 hindrances, or the 7 enlightenment factors, or the 37 aids to enlightenment, a rather large numbered list. There are many of these numbered lists, and simply learning about these different lists can be a very powerful way to start learning about the sutras, because they are repeated many times in different sutras. They're discussed from many different angles, and learning about them can be a way into seeing the big picture of the Buddhist teachings. So for example, the 4 noble truths, which the Buddha described, that there is suffering, that there's a cause of suffering, and that therefore that suffering can end. There's an end to suffering, and there's a path from suffering to the end of suffering, can be a way into learning the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the 4th noble truth. The way from suffering to the end of suffering, the Buddha claims this is the Noble Eightfold Path. And so the concepts sort of connect to each other, and the more you learn about the different numbered lists, the more you see the ways that they relate and that they support each other, and you can also start to apply them in your own practice. And so simply learning about these different numbered lists is an excellent way to guide our study of the Buddhist teachings. And I would even suggest that you take the time to memorize these different numbered lists. Some of us enjoy memorizing, others maybe not so much. I know for myself at different times in my education, I was compelled to memorize different things. For example, all of the countries on a certain continent and where they were. And that didn't seem particularly relevant or interesting to me at the time. It just felt onerous, not fun, not useful, not a very good use of my time. And I resented the teacher that made me do that. And maybe some of you have had experiences like this, where you had to memorize poems in school, memorize different passages, maybe memorize something to be performed in a play, or different geographical facts or mathematical facts, and you might still resent the teachers that made you do that. And I think this actually makes a lot of sense, because in most cases, at least that I remember from my own education, can't speak for your education, of course, but at least in my education, the things that I had to memorize truly were not useful or relevant to me and my life. And other than preparing for the relevant exam, I have not needed any of them since those times. So in a certain way, it didn't really make sense. It was not a good use of my time or this precious life. That's how it seems to me now, that the education system, at least in that respect, systematically wasted my time. And I don't appreciate that. Maybe some of you will have had similar experiences. Maybe not. Maybe you really enjoyed memorizing things, in which case, more power to you. I have come to this myself, where I do enjoy memorizing things. but at the time I did not. And yet, I suggest that it's useful to memorize these different numbered lists, to become familiar with them, to memorize them, and make them the basis of our practice. And that's because, unlike, for example, geographical facts or arbitrary poems that your teacher liked and you didn't like, we ourselves are choosing to walk this path, to engage with, in this case, the Buddhist teachings, although this advice would certainly apply to other teachings as well. But we are choosing for ourselves to learn about Buddhism. And indeed, this is a teaching that we can make the basis of our spiritual path, that can radically transform our perception and our behavior, the way that we perceive the world and the way that we show up to help others in this world. And this, to me, seems like a tremendously beneficial use of my time, and I believe your time, to truly learn about and reflect on, engage with, chew on these teachings, and using the tool of memorization as a means to that end. In Plato's Theaetetus, which is a Socratic dialogue written many centuries ago, Socrates compares knowledge to something that you write upon the tablet of your soul. That your soul is compared to a tablet that you can write on, like a scroll that you can write on, that's what our soul is, and knowledge is something that you inscribe upon that tablet. And so if that's the case, it's just a metaphor, but it's worth considering what kinds of things you would want to inscribe upon your soul. You wouldn't want to doodle on your soul or draw graffiti, or perhaps even worse, put useless, arbitrary facts upon your soul. You would want to put something truly beneficial on your soul. So I would suggest that these or other spiritual teachings are things that are worth transcribing on your soul, that are worth truly reflecting on, remembering, and making the basis of your practice. So simply learning about the numbered lists, and if you so choose, memorizing them, is an excellent way to guide your practice. For example, if you decide to memorize the 5 precepts, you can reflect on, as you memorize them, whether or not your conduct, your behavior, your life is or is not following those guidelines that are offered as a spiritual practice. If you memorize the 5 hindrances, for example, if you're meditating, you can reflect on your experience and notice whether any of those 5 hindrances seem to be present or not. And perhaps in the coming weeks, we'll focus on some of these lists. But as I mentioned, I thought today it would be useful to talk about the 3 jewels, or sometimes called the triple gem, or the 3 treasures. And this is a numbered list that often comes into play when you take refuge, which in some traditions is considered to be the sort of initiation ritual that you undertake when you become a Buddhist. That you become a Buddhist when you take refuge in these 3 treasures, these 3 jewels. Even the word jewels or treasures or gems indicates that this is a special list, that these are precious. The world is conditioned to make us value various things like money, objects, fame, things like this. And the claim is made that there's something even more precious than that. These 3 jewels, these 3 gems, these 3 treasures, which are the Buddha, which you can see as the historical Buddha, or in some Buddhist cosmologies, any of the many Buddhas that recur through time, or just spiritual teachers in general, or perhaps as your own Buddha nature, your own capacity to awaken. Any of these are good ways of seeing this particular jewel. The second jewel is the Dharma, which a word that has many meanings, but in this case means the Buddhist teachings as propounded by the Buddha and practiced through the centuries by the various Buddhist traditions. And the third jewel, or gem, or treasure is us, this group, or any other group that you may be part of that reflects on spiritual teachings, which is the Sangha, community of spiritual practitioners dedicated to practicing these teachings, to following the teacher, to making this the basis of their lives. So it's not just any community, but some community of spiritual practitioners trying in some way to live in accordance with these or other teachings. So this could also be, your church or your temple, your mosque. It could be people that you talk to on Twitter. I notice these days that there's a very nice Buddhist Sangha developing on Twitter. In any case, we recognize that we're connected to others who are also seeking to practice spirituality, who are also seeking to make a spiritual teaching the basis of their lives. So these three jewels, these three precious gifts that we are offered in this life are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the teacher, the teachings, and the community of practitioners. There's a story from the Buddhist sutras that I believe really illustrates how precious these teachings are that I thought I would share with you today. It's very hard for us to recognize how precious these three jewels are. As I said, we're conditioned to value other things, but if these teachings are real, if this path is real, which I believe it is, then the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha are incomparably precious, far more precious than anything we own or can purchase or acquire. It's a rare and special gift. And in the time of the Buddha, there was a lay practitioner that had a chance to recognize this. There was a practitioner whose given name was Sudatta. And you might look up the sutra with his name after this if you like, if you feel inspired by his example. There are many stories of this person. And Sudatta was a very wealthy merchant who lived in the region of Savatthi. And he, like many business people, decided to go on a business trip. He went to another region, believed to Rajagaha, to make a business trip. Perhaps he was purchasing something, perhaps he was selling something. In any case, he needed to go to another region to conduct his business. And while he was there, like many business people on business trips, he made sure to give himself some time to enjoy himself, to recover from his difficult day. And what Sudatta liked to do most was to spend time with friends. Like many of us, we enjoy the company of others, and Sudatta was just like us. And in this region where he was traveling, his brother-in-law lived there. So he thought, I'll go visit my brother-in-law on this business trip. It'd be good to see him. And in the past, when he had visited his brother-in-law, usually he was greeted with a warm welcome, with festivities, with food, drink, in the way that anyone would be welcomed in our culture. If you saw an old friend, you would welcome them into your home and treat them well and enjoy each other's company. And so this was what he was looking forward to. He was looking forward to seeing his brother-in-law, his family, and to relaxing in their company. Perhaps eating food, enjoying drinks, this kind of thing. But on this occasion, he went to the home of his brother-in-law, and he saw that the servants were scurrying about. They seemed to be very busy, and no one paid him very much attention. They couldn't greet him in the way that he was used to. And he was surprised, because many times he had gone to visit his brother-in-law and received a warm welcome. And eventually he found his brother-in-law, and he said, what's happening here? Is there someone who's getting married or something like that? Is there some big occasion, something that's going on? You all seem to be quite busy. What's happening here? And his brother-in-law said, no, nothing like that. Actually, it's quite better than that, any of those things. Tomorrow, I have invited the Enlightened One and his group of monks to come here and to take food from us. So we're preparing for that. And Sudatta stopped in his tracks and said, wait, what did you say? And his brother-in-law said, well, the Enlightened One and the monks are coming here tomorrow. We're going to feed them. And Sudatta said, wait, did you say the Enlightened One? The Blessed One? The Buddha? And his brother-in-law said, yeah, that's what I said. The Enlightened One is coming here tomorrow. I'm going to feed him. And once more, Sudatta said, wait, did you say the Enlightened One? Really? The Enlightened One? And his brother-in-law said, yes, the Enlightened One is coming here tomorrow. I'm going to feed him. Going to acquire merit in this way, feeding the Blessed One and the many monks that attend to him. And Sudatta breathed a deep sigh of relief. Because he didn't know at this time of the Buddha. It was quite early in the Buddha's teachings, and he had only been teaching for about 3 years at that point. So Sudatta did not know the Buddha, had not met the Buddha, and did not know that there was an Enlightened One. And as is appropriate for this occasion, he said, it is rare in this world even to hear the words the Enlightened One uttered. It's rare even to hear the words the Enlightened One. When can I see him? This was his question. He knew how rare it was that there even would be a Buddha. In Buddhist cosmology, as described in the Pali Canon, there are many Buddhas that recur through time, but it's rare. It takes a long time for a Buddha to appear. Many, many aeons. And so Sudatta knew this is rare, that there even would be a Buddha, let alone that I would hear about him. And it seems I may have the chance to meet him, even rarer, that there would be a Buddha, I would hear about him, and I would get to meet him. This is an exceptionally rare occurrence. And of course, from this perspective, it's rare for us to even receive the teachings of the Buddha, to be able to read and study these teachings or to hear them taught. This is itself considered quite rare, quite precious, that we would have this opportunity. And if you study Buddhist cosmology, you will see how rare they claim it is. Even to be born human is considered quite rare, let alone to be exposed to these teachings. So Sudatta was even more lucky than us in that he had the opportunity to meet the Buddha. And his brother-in-law said, well, today wouldn't be suitable. The Buddha is busy today, but you could go see him tomorrow morning. And so Sudatta took this into account and took his brother-in-law's advice. And that night, he was so excited that he had difficulty sleeping. It said that he woke up 3 times in the night. He just could not sleep properly. He was so excited by this rare opportunity to meet a Buddha. And it said that the next morning, he set off to go see the Buddha. And as he started walking in the direction of the Buddha and his monks, as you might imagine, a great fear descended upon him. He had many doubts arise. He was confused, and he started to think, maybe I won't go see the Buddha after all. I like my life, and it seems like I might have to risk my life if I met the Buddha. Who knows what he would teach me? Maybe not. Maybe this isn't such a good idea. And he was strongly considering turning around and walking back when a being came to him and said, essentially that elephants and chariots and all of your gold are not worth 1/16 the worth of this opportunity of meeting the Buddha, or of taking one step forward on the path. That's what the being said. All of your possessions, all of the things that you hold on to as a householder are not worth 1/16 the value of a step forward on this path. So, and then he exhorted Sudatta, go forward, go forward, go forward, householder. Take this step, go see the Buddha. And we all owe a great debt of gratitude to this being that intervened and encouraged Sudatta because, well, first of all, when Sudatta did meet with the Buddha, it said that he, in the course of that conversation, attained stream entry, initial awakening, because of the discourse that the Buddha gave him. So that in itself was precious and priceless and rare. But for us, we should be even more grateful because Sudatta went on to become quite famous in the Buddhist literature. His spiritual name is Anathapindika, which means one who gives alms to the helpless. And Anathapindika, as his spiritual name, went on to become the Buddha's foremost patron. He purchased an enormous monastery for the Buddha and housed many monks, and many of the sutras that you might decide to read begin with describing how the Blessed One was staying at the monastery that Anathapindika built. And Anathapindika went on to support the Buddha through his whole life, even through quite difficult challenges. There are some very interesting stories of things that happened to Anathapindika in his life, that he became poor and then rich again in various ways. And even through all of that, he supported the Buddha and the monks. And so we owe him a great debt of gratitude for his generosity at that time, because his generosity has enabled us to receive these teachings 2,500 years later. And Anathapindika is considered foremost in generosity. He set the example of how householders should practice generosity. And we are the recipients of his generosity because he made it possible for us to receive these teachings, even though we do not have the great fortune of living at the time of the Buddha. We still are able to receive his teachings many centuries later. Of course, other people contributed to making that possible as well, but he was foremost in generosity and supported the Buddha in this way. So Sudatta, or Anathapindika knew from the moment his brother-in-law mentioned it how precious it was to encounter these teachings and a teacher, and above all that, a fully enlightened one, a Buddha. It's extremely rare to encounter these teachings, and he had to stop in his tracks, asking his brother-in-law multiple times, "Did you really say that? Is there really a Buddha that you've met and that could teach us?" This is a rare opportunity, and Sudatta Anathapindika knew this, recognized it, and immediately acted upon his faith in a way that bore fruit for him. He quickly achieved stream entry, simply one day after hearing about the Buddha. This is truly remarkable. And of course, in the Pali Canon, it's said that this happened because of intentions that Anathapindika set many lifetimes before to become the chief patron of a Buddha, and that he acquired much merit from various acts that he did in previous lifetimes so that this momentous occasion would become possible. It's something that's worth reflecting on, how clearly and consistently the Buddhist teachings talk about the effects of our actions and how they play out throughout the lifetimes. So I hope that you will take Anathapindika's example and consider how precious it is to live in a time where we can hear of the Buddha, where we can receive his teachings, make them the basis of our practice, and even to gather in this way and other ways with a Sangha that practices these teachings. These are jewels, gems, treasures that are rare and precious, and if we choose to walk this path, we should see them as such, recognizing their value and making them the basis of our life, not casting them aside or valuing the things of the world more than these teachings. Instead, we should value these things more than anything else. They are the most valuable things that we've ever been exposed to, if these teachings are true. So of course, that's something we have to investigate and wrestle with ourselves. We have to decide if we believe these teachings, if we find them valuable. We have to put them to the test. We don't need to have blind faith, but if they seem true to us, we recognize how valuable they are, how rare it is that we would come upon these teachings. And I would suggest that reading the sutras, learning about them, and perhaps memorizing the sutras or these numbered lists, such as the 3 treasures that we've discussed today, is a very simple, actionable, and very powerful way to show that, to demonstrate that these teachings are rare and precious, and we wish to make them the basis of our lives. And fortunately, today we'll have a chance to practice these teachings, to investigate loving kindness and the mindfulness of breathing, both of which are taught extensively in different sutras. And we'll be able to run this experiment. Do these alter my awareness? Do these alter my consciousness? Do these seem to have benefits? And if so, we can make them the basis of our lives, not only for our own benefit, but for the benefit of others and for all life. So for the next 40 or 45 minutes, we'll be practicing these techniques. Feel free to make yourself comfortable, to sit or stand in a way that works for you. And of course, feel free to use the restroom at any time or anything that you need. But we'll have a chance to practice these teachings for the next little while. Take a moment to check in with your posture. Allow your spine to become upright. Straightening up, becoming alert. And having straightened up, take a moment to settle in, to relax and allow your body to become calm. This is the basic orientation that we develop with our body. Straightening up and settling in, becoming alert and becoming relaxed. And from this place, consider yourself. Bring yourself to mind. And cultivate an attitude of love for yourself. You can use mental talk, such as the phrase, "May I be happy." But you can use any phrase you like. The point is to cultivate a sense of goodwill and love towards yourself. In this practice, we develop a love for all beings. And this does not mean other beings. It means all beings. And you also are a being that deserves love. So take a moment to generate a mind of love, compassion, care, and affection for yourself. This might not be easy. For many of us, it's not. But it can be simple. You can simply say the phrase, "May I be happy," in your mind. And this is a simple step towards generating this mind of love for yourself. May I be happy. As you proceed with this technique, notice any impacts that it has on your emotional body. Perhaps you feel a warmth in your heart or a smile on your face. If so, savor that, enjoy it, and allow it to spread. Perhaps a difficult emotion arises, a feeling of self-hatred, self-loathing, or some other form of difficult emotion. If so, just accept and allow that without trying to force it to go away. If there's no perceivable emotional reaction, that's okay too. You're simply putting in the work so that one day in the future, it will become easier to generate love for yourself. Simply saying the phrase, "May I be happy," is, from this light, an investment in your future happiness. So you may not see the rewards right now, but we trust, knowing that this is a step in the direction of self-love. May I be happy. You are worthy of this love. Very good. Now bring to mind someone that you love dearly. Perhaps a partner or a family member or a dear friend, teacher. Bring such a person to mind. And in the same way, say some kind of phrase to them that generates love, compassion, care in your body, such as the phrase, "May you be happy." What phrase you use isn't so important. What matters is the skill of learning to generate positive feeling in the body. So anything will do. See if you can use your love for this person as a way to bring forth an attitude of loving kindness. Very good. Now bring to mind someone who is in your life but you don't know very well. Some kind of acquaintance, connection. If you're not sure who to use, you could pick someone in this gathering who is here but you don't know very well. And this person also deserves to be happy, also deserves love. So again, see if you can use some kind of phrase to wish them happiness, wish them well. Very good. Now, if you like, bring to mind someone in your life who's difficult for you. Someone who perhaps aggravates you, or someone who has hurt you, or even someone who you might be tempted to see as some kind of enemy. This person is also a living being who is also suffering, who also wants to be happy. See if you can connect to that basic aspect of them and wish that they also will be happy. The challenge level might be high. It might be difficult to send this person love. But we know, at least intellectually, that they also want to be happy, and as a living being, they also deserve to be happy. So even just for a few moments, we try to wish that for them. Very good. Now, for just a moment, see if you can zoom out. See if you can generate an attitude of loving kindness for all beings, for yourself, for the individuals you selected, and for all humans and all animals and all life. Strive to bring forth an attitude of love for all. Very good. And for just another moment, see if you can tune into any feelings of love or goodwill that are abiding in your body from this exercise. Perhaps there aren't any, or there are difficult emotions. If so, that's okay. Just be mindful and present with that. But if there are any feelings of love or happiness or joy, see if you can sink your feet into that, abiding in these positive qualities that you've cultivated. Some of us will have had difficult emotions arise. For others, not much may have happened. And for others, we may have connected to this feeling of loving kindness in our bodies. Any of this is fine. But if you did connect to these feelings of love and care in your body, see if you can ride that wave into this next exercise. Without losing that momentum, turn your attention to a new technique. Again, bring awareness to the breathing sensations in the abdomen. Noticing what it feels like to inhale and what it feels like to exhale. As we pay attention to the sensations of breathing, we'll make use of an aid. In the same way that we used our mental talk to generate loving kindness, we will use visualization to help us attend to and focus our breathing. Continuing to maintain awareness of the breathing at the abdomen. See if you can expand that awareness to include your legs. Feel your legs and your abdominal region as you attend to the breathing. This is the lower half of the body, the part that's farthest away from our thinking mind. Bring awareness to this region. And as you do this, you may notice that you have a subtle mental image of what your body looks like, where your legs and feet are positioned. If so, notice that. The technique is to feel the lower half of our body, noticing the breathing sensations. And to aid us in that, visualize the breath moving up and down your legs with the inhale and the exhale. Imagine the breath moving up your legs with the inhale and down your legs with the exhale. Coming to and returning from the abdominal region. We know that oxygen is moving through our whole body, circulating many times an hour. We're simply visualizing that process. As you do this, you may find it helpful to imagine some kind of color or visual texture to the breath. For example, seeing the breath as a white light running up and down your legs as you breathe. It's not easy to stay with the breathing. It's not easy to feel our lower body. And it's not necessarily easy to visualize. But strangely, you might find that if you use all of these things at once, it's easier than doing any one of them. Practice using visualization to attend to your lower body and the breathing process. The point of this exercise is to increase our awareness of the lower half of our body and the breathing. But we can use the visualization to stabilize our attention. Feel your lower body and feel your breathing. Wonderful. Thank you all for practicing with us, for gathering together. This is a time to discuss anything about the meditation or the talk, to give reports or to ask questions. Anything is fine. This is your time.
Hello, this is Pam. A very good practice. Quality of my concentration was mediocre, yet the way I'm feeling today, I'll take mediocre. And I noticed that my worry was all up here, and that when I focused down lower, that I didn't feel worried. So that's good. I'm very happy and also my sense of being worn out was mostly up here, but not in my heart area and not in my lower. So that's really, I'm happy with that insight and the support to do that prolonged practice. That's much longer than I usually practice, which is one of the benefits of joining this community on Saturday, is that I get my once a week. And it's part of what Shinzen tells us over and over, is that we should accelerate our practice at least occasionally. So I'm happy about that. And I also would like to report that what I participated in this morning, which is a Jewish service that I co-lead, I bring the meditation part. This week's portion that we discussed was about refuge, cities of refuge, which is in the Old Testament about cities of refuge. So it was very nice to tie that from the morning, last night, this morning, and with this. And that really goes in nicely about refuge. So, thank you. That's all I want to share. I do have a question, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed your style, Joshin style, Shinzen, and several others, they repeat things over and over. Like, it's good, it's wonderful, it's precious, it's this. And I like that style. Do you do that on purpose to reinforce it? Or is it just what your teacher does and his teacher does and all that? Because I don't notice it in the Jewish talks that I hear, which I also hear weekly. So, and I like it. I'm going to try to do it. But just if you have any comments on that style, which I've noticed.
Yeah. I mean, I've listened to probably hundreds or maybe thousands of guided meditations from the people that you named, from my teachers. And so that style has really rubbed off on me, which is the treasure of Sangha. We spend time together, and that impacts us. We are influenced by each other, and take on each other's good qualities, also other qualities. That's why it's good to set a good example for each other. But I think a really important part of teaching and guiding others is making it interesting. The practices are really quite simple. If you follow your breath, feel the sensations associated with breathing, and just keep doing that, good things happen. We have shifts that can radically transform our perception and our behavior and our lives. That does happen. That's why we do this. But it's very simple. All you have to do is follow your breath, or do any technique. There are many techniques, but I and others like to emphasize following your breath because it's tried and true. It works really well. It gets us out of our heads, as you said, and into the lower part of our body where it's difficult to become anxious or get caught up in our patterns, and it's easier to stay calm and be concentrated. And that transforms our physiology, and it transforms our brains, and it transforms our consciousness. But it's really simple. You can say it in 3 words: follow your breath. And yet we have difficulty doing it. It's hard. It can seem boring. So I think one of the roles of a teacher is to make it interesting and spice it up, inject variety into it. I mean, I know for myself in recent months and years, I've discovered tens, hundreds of different ways to attend to my breath. Just that simple exercise can take on many variations, many different adjustments, like the one that we did this week or last week. there are different ways of doing it, and the more ways we know how to do something that seems very simple, the more we can adapt to different circumstances and situations, bringing it into more and more of our life. So that's something I at least am trying to do. I can't speak for all or Joshin or Shinzen, but I think certainly we influence each other and have been influenced by each other. And yeah, there's a sort of style that I think we have, and that's what I've been training in. So yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And I'm hoping that style rubs off on me more and more, because I teach a lot of people a variety of things, including I teach them memorizing certain lists.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wonderful.
Thank you for bringing that up too, because studying the sutra doesn't sound good to me, but short lists, memorizing them sounds really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate that too. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. And the sutras have more power when you know what they're talking about. So, say you get interested in the hindrances or something, you're like, well, what's really happening here? And you've memorized the list. If you go to read a sutra about the hindrances, it has more power than if you're just reading it sort of cold. It takes time, and just knowing the different concepts, the different lists, is a sort of good way to get started. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Hi, Renee.
Hi. So a story that I've made up to explain to myself the style that Pam just brought out is that in the very limited sutra study I've done, that's the way they read to me. They're very repetitive. They say the same thing again and again and again and again. And I just decided that that's probably why Soryu does that. That's probably, and I know it's a story I made up to explain it, but there's a distinct similarity for me between reading a sutra and being like, okay, I've heard this 15 times already. I'm going to hear it 15 more times before we move on, and getting to a place where I'm so grateful to hear it 32 times.
The sutras were passed on orally for about 100 years, and it's a mark of oral cultures to use repetition or rhyme and other kind of tricks to make it easier for people to absorb large quantities of text. This is something that you see across traditions. I was first exposed to this when I read Homer in college. There's a lot of similar repetition for pretty much everything that Homer describes. There's a stock description, the wine dark sea, or rosy fingered dawn, or something like this. And that makes it easier to remember large chunks of things. And people, have and actually do memorize huge quantities of sutras. This is certainly an ongoing practice in Islam, that someone becomes what's known as a hafiz, someone who memorizes the whole Quran. But there are also people doing this for Buddhism, memorizing enormous quantities of sutras, or even the whole canon, which, as I mentioned in the description, is 11 times the size of the Bible. So it gives you a sense of how enormous a task that is. And people do it because of tricks like this. It's easier if there's repetition over and over again. And in fact, memorizing the concepts makes it easier to sort of anticipate how things are connected in a way that you can sort of, psychologists call this like chunking. You can chunk different parts of concepts so that it's easier to remember them. And it becomes possible to memorize the sutras, even large quantities of them. So I think that's part of the repetition in the sutras. I mean, for guided meditations, it has a function of helping you to stay focused. If you're just reminded in different ways that, yes, we're following the breath now. That's a gentle reminder if you get distracted, that you can come back to that. You'll need to unmute yourself, Christine.
Well, first of all, this is my third time, and I feel extremely grateful of the guidance in the meditation. I've never had such focused guidance, and it's really helpful. And I like the compliments you have at the end of each section, like that we did a good job, whether you saw us or not, whether you know or not, and it makes you feel like you did do a good job. So I wanted to thank you for that.
Well,
and then I have one question. I've only studied Buddhism through one other way about 10 years ago for 2 years, and it was through chanting, the repetition of chanting. And when you chant, you do have a certain control of the breath. But I was wondering, there's so many different sects or kinds of Buddhism. I was wondering how you feel about chanting as part of meditation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Well, the first thing I'd say is you actually did do a great job. No matter what happened, you did a great job. Because first off, you attended, and that's great. You're being exposed to these teachings, and I truly believe that these teachings are precious. And so that itself is good. But also, if you did any kind of effort at all to do any of these techniques, or any technique at all, even one I didn't describe, that is itself good work. Even if nothing seemed to happen, or terrible things seem to happen, that's okay. The way I see it, you're kind of putting in the effort, putting in the hours, where this practice can gradually over time transform your perception and transform your behavior. And that takes time. So you put the time in, and even if it seemed like not much happened, that's a step in the right direction. As the being said to Sudatta, the things that we value in this life, like elephants and chariots, or our stocks and our clothes, or whatever it may be for our culture, these aren't worth 1/16 of a step on this path. So we have all taken a step on this path together today. It may have seemed boring or neutral. Despite the reports we've had, some of you may be annoyed by my guidance. It doesn't matter. You've taken a step forward, and that's commendable, regardless of what happened. So it's not like an empty compliment or something. I truly believe you did a great job, at the very least, just by showing up here, but also by making an earnest effort to do the techniques I described, or even any technique at all, which is always an option. You can just do some other technique. That's always an option. So really, thank you for your good work.
Thank you. Really loved being here today.
Mm-hmm.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the chanting goes, as you say, there's a lot of different kinds of Buddhism, or even kinds of traditions. And within that, there are many different kinds of chanting. But chanting is one of the most universal spiritual practices across traditions, and certainly within Buddhism. We chant here multiple times a day, at the beginning of the day, before our meals, after our meals, and at the end of the day, and sometimes even for special ceremonies or things like that. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason that it's such a universal practice. Of course, different kinds of chants have different purposes, and so you have to kind of sense into what that is. For example, there are chants that cultivate loving kindness, which we practice today. There are chants that cultivate energy and vigor and aliveness. There are chants that remind you of various teachings, such as ethical practices or other things that are important on the path. So chanting can serve many different functions, but it's universal across traditions and is a highly useful practice. You can use it to develop concentration or any number of good qualities. It's also extremely useful if you're highly distracted. If you're just like really distracted and cannot do a more standard technique, like say following your breath or noting or something, chanting, if you are in a space that allows it, or even just in your own mind, is a wonderful way to develop concentration and maybe even other qualities like happiness and peace, because you're using your body to do it. You can just chant over and over and over again the same passage or the same phrase, and that can be easier than doing other kinds of techniques. So this is actually recommended for people that are doing intensive retreat, that if a time comes that you're extremely distraught or it's just hard to concentrate for any number of reasons, that you use chanting as a practice. So yeah, it's wonderful, and I'm glad that you've been exposed to it, and it's certainly something you can continue to investigate.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi there.
Hi, Colin.
Thanks so much for the Oak community and the guidance. It's so nice to be on this call. My question is, I'm curious how the technique you went over today, how that might tie into other cultivation techniques. Like if you see it as, if you would add or remove anything or notice any particular qualities if someone is trying to cultivate energy or calmness or other qualities, if there are more points there.
And you specifically mean the first technique where we cultivated loving kindness?
Actually, either one, and probably with more of a focus on the breathing, but either one.
I see. Okay, great. Yeah. Well, cultivation is a very broad category of practice. The most common examples are things like loving kindness, which we did practice today, but also things like prayer, or also cultivating energy, as you mentioned. There are many, many different kinds of qualities that you can cultivate, that you can sort of actively change your experience to bring about more of. This is what all of these techniques have in common, that there's something you're actively trying to give rise to. And for each of the different qualities, there are many different strategies you can take for cultivating those qualities. So, for example, when I was guiding loving kindness, I tried to, give a stock example of how you could do that, but there's a lot of ways to do that, and you should feel empowered to try lots of them. In general, experimentation and playfulness are excellent qualities in this practice and path. And, just using the kind of default instructions is useful, but also limiting. And in my experience, trying lots of different things has helped me to gain a sense of it. Now, something that's common to many, but not all of these techniques, is that you're cultivating something with your body. This is not the case for all cultivation techniques, but it is the case for many cultivation techniques. Often in this tradition, we say that meditation is something you do with your body. There are techniques that you use your mind for, but often it's useful to meditate with your body. And so in many cultivation techniques, you use either mental images or mental talk or both to generate sensations in the body. So the point is to generate sensations in the body, but you use the mind, whether it's images or talk, to do that as kind of a seed for something that grows in the body. So at a certain point, with whatever quality you're cultivating, if it is a quality you cultivate in the body, you may be able to ride that wave such that it's just in your body, that you can set aside images and talk and just continue to cultivate the sensation in your body, whether it's loving kindness or energy or something else. But that can be difficult. It can take time. It can take practice. And until you get to that point with whatever quality you're cultivating, you can just use image or talk or both to, again, like plant that in your body. You know, for me, I often find with these techniques that mental talk tends to be easier than images, just for me. For some people, images might be easier than mental talk. For others, it might be easier to do both than just one. This is again why experimentation is so important, because over time I've learned that talk works best for me, but it's different for different people. So you have to just try out what works for you. Ultimately, we find a kind of meditation that no one could really tell us to do besides ourselves through exploring. Other people can just kind of like point in a direction, but you have to walk in that direction and find it for yourself. So these are kind of the components of many cultivation techniques. As I said, not all of them, but a lot of them do involve using mental thinking of those different kinds to generate sensations in the body. And you can get to the point where it just sustains itself in the body, where you can just work with it. So for me, for example, you know, after I've generated a few phrases, a smile will come to my face, and then I feel like a warm sensation in my heart, and I can just keep going with that. And then if for some reason it dissipates, I can just come back, bring another phrase, and then, you know, it's there again. And that might be different for different people, but if you get to that point, it's extremely useful to maintain, sustain, and grow it in the body. Does that help?
Yes, that sounds very interesting and helpful. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, I think we're just about at time. So thank you all for gathering today. It's lovely to see all of you. And as we've discussed, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha are precious. So this community that has gathered here today is precious. It's more valuable than anything else in our lives if these teachings are true. So thank you for your time and for your practice, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Tasshin, so glad you came to
Bye.
OAK. What a treat. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, everyone. It's so great to be with all of you today.
Great to be with you, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Bye now.
Hi, friends.
Bye.
The Sangha is the special sauce. Thank you.
Mhm.